So, hello everybody. So this session is about driving innovation in the sales process. I am going to be accompanied on stage by Sanjiv from Creo Solutions, Thomas from Webex, Nicolai from Market Maker Ventures, and Jon from Crexendo. I'm not going to do much of a preamble. I'm going to ask them just to come and join me on the stage like straight away, and then we can get stuck into this if that's okay. There's quite a bright light up there as well. So come on down. Give them a round of applause. Thank you. So, gentlemen, do take a seat. Hello. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? So I think we might have just to share some mics. But what I wanted to do to start with is, so Robert talked about the playbook and how there's a huge amount of value and usefulness in the playbook and how we can possibly apply it to the sales process. And then Jon and the rest of the panel talked about the go-to-market strategy and how this should look like in what a modern and winning go-to-market strategy should look like. Here I want to talk about sales and innovation in the sales process. First of all, what I wanted to do, before we dive into that, because we're now getting to the sort of the end of the day, as it were, or the end of the 2 days, I wanted to ask the panelists for one, just to quickly introduce yourself to the audience, tell us about who you are, where you're coming from, and also tell me what's been your top highlight or takeaway from the last 2 days. Let's start there, and then we'll dive into sales, if that's first. So Sanjiv, can I come to you first?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Sanjiv Parikh, and I am from Creo Solutions. We basically focus on providing solutions to a variety of CLECs, carriers, small carriers, MNOs, more in the CPaaS, CCaaS, and UCaaS world. My background has been for the last 25 plus years, all in unified communications. And one of the biggest things that I learned, and I think I can take away, is there's no longer CPaaS. It's all about CX. And it's all about solutions. So, and I think that's the biggest takeaway, that we should not be selling things from a vertical CPaaS, UCaaS, CCaaS point of view, but more from the solution point of view as to what the actual customer needs are. So that's one of the biggest takeaway.
I love that, actually, for a couple of reasons. So, my name is Thomas Boesen, and I'm with Cisco, and I built a software business together with a lot of other people before that we sold to Cisco, which was a CPaaS business. That CPaaS business now gone into Cisco, and actually has been the CEO of that CPaaS business, has become the CEO of a much, much bigger business, which is the CX business. So that's great that that's the outcome. I think for me, the main outcome, probably also this element that there's such discussion about API or solutions. And for me, it looks like the telcos are kind of split in two groups. Some are really looking, how can I create whole solutions for business? And others are thinking, how can I best enable my platform and provide the API? So I think both are needed, so it's good, but at least there's some work there.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jon Brinton. I'm Chief Revenue Officer at Crexendo. Most people, when I'm in Europe, have never heard of Crexendo. We're a U.S. Publicly listed company. We're actually the home of or own the NetSapiens platform, which some people are familiar with when I talk to them in Europe. So part of and that's a UCaaS, CCaaS, converged communications platform we sell to service providers. And we have about 235 partners and service providers globally that take our product branded as their offer. So part of what I bring hopefully to this conversation is not only the B2B of selling to businesses and enterprises, but also the B2B of selling to service providers and carriers in different sales cycles. So it's very happy to be with you here today, and appreciate the conversation that we're going to have. My thing that was a takeaway, actually one of them, was from earlier today in this excellent session this morning, when we talked about how 73% of customers want to use self-service, but only 14% of them were successfully able to do so when they tried to do that. And I think that even has context for this framework where we'll talk about all the great ways that we're innovating in the sales process and realize that however innovative that we get, we think we built a mousetrap that will attract 100% of the buyers, but maybe we haven't worked out all the pieces to where maybe it's only 14% or 20% or some number that you can pick that specific go-to-market action will appeal to. But that did stick with me from earlier today because many of us have spent a lot of time trying to build products in different parts of our offering for customers and realize that what goes from the engineering head to the customer's hands to work with is often not as simple as it should be.
All right, my name is Nicolai. I'm the CEO, founder, Matchmaker Ventures. In a nutshell, what we do, we globally scan the market to find the best tech innovations. Usually it's scale-up stage, and then we help to scale them in the telecom ecosystem. So business development sales is on our core, but we don't sell our own product, but we use that for our portfolio companies, 13 at the moment that we do. My takeaway is slightly different than from the other audience. I think it's from yesterday. So I'm confused, which is a good thing after a conference. That means there's a lot of knowledge that my slow brain still needs to process. And yesterday in the audience, in the panel, I asked a question about is the network API topic an evolution of the CPaaS market, and the overarching majority said yes, and I still strongly believe I completely disagree, or actually partly because I think there's a separation, but to a big extent, I think it's something fundamentally different. So I think I'm not in line with the majority. That's my takeaway.
There you go. Thank you. So thank you for all of that. Let's jump into the topic of the title of the session, and about sales and driving innovation in the sales process. I mean, what I wanted to do is, first of all, kind of ask each of you, Jon, I think I'm going to come to you first because you've got CRO in your title, so therefore this is kind of the first thing you probably think about kind of every morning is, what do you do? What does innovation mean for you, and what are you doing to drive innovation into your sales process?
Yeah, so I would, from my perspective, innovation to me would largely be, maybe innovation is an overstatement, improvement. Right. So how can we adopt and use new tactics, new capabilities in the market, new ways to look at problems and address them in a way to get improvement from a baseline? Because everybody here on the stage, part of what our introduction has been a little bit of our CV, right? We all come to an event like this or whatever where we have our standard practices that we're looking to improve. So, while we like to talk about it and make it sound that way, I've been in technology a long time, there isn't as much of a blue ocean strategy as we'd all like to think, where we're going to go out and create something that is totally standalone and unique and suddenly attract this large pool of buyers, because those buyers are generally coming from someplace else or an alternative way that they've tried to solve the problem today. So to me, a large part in how I look at innovation is how can we measure our process, look at ways to improve it, and then make sure we are scanning the horizon to add new things to our tech stack, to our go-to-market strategy, to our marketing strategy, that we either come up with ourselves or find from others that can help us be more effective in the market.
Perfect, thank you. It's refreshing to hear you not talk about different ways, talk about innovation being about a process of improvement rather than just being other new stuff that we can use in the kind of the process. Because that sometimes seems to be the trap that many people fall into when you talk about innovation, particularly in an enterprise kind of context. They're like, oh, new stuff. And they wander off to find the next new shiny object. Thomas, you've just joined a larger enterprise. What's your view on the whole innovation and becoming more innovative in the sales process? What did you do at your previous company, and have you been able to take that forward into Cisco?
Well, firstly, so I was thinking and sitting doing a bit of calculation. Just I think I've probably been selling for 26 years of my life, selling to large telcos for them to sell to enterprises or to consumers. So it's growing that in two different ways. So great to be here and think about what have we learned that. But I think...
So I think I just realized you're much younger than I am.
Okay. Great, thanks. Anyway, so on that, I'm just thinking, in reality, I don't know if it's even improved. It's also a little bit just back to basics. I think with the team, it's very much around how do we go back to where, of course, it's consultative selling. Of course, it's like in listening to the customer, being through that whole process. And I think reiterating that, bringing people back to that is quite important in innovation world. On the step of what Cisco is bringing in, I think they're bringing a huge set of other possibilities and solutions that are coming into the picture. And for us, it's about land and expand. So basically going in, selling, stick to what the salespeople really know. So in this case, we are mainly on the CPaaS side because that's where we come from. And get one solution in there and then work with them. How can we add other elements around it? So I would say the same thing. I don't think it's so much innovation. Maybe it's even more back to basics, I think, and trying to maintain that because it's not, the world doesn't change. It's not that AI will overtake over so the biggest thing I'm using from CPaaS, from Cisco, is probably Webex. I think so. I had a life where for the first 20 years of my working life, I was on a plane every day in average. Unbelievable time we spent just getting around. I think it's still very valuable to meet people in person. But I found out you can do a lot of it and much more of it doing it over video to solutions as well. So.
Okay, perfect. Before I come to you, Sanjiv, I want to go to Nicolai because you have a slightly different perspective because you're scanning the market looking for innovative approaches to try and help, I guess, drive sales in your portfolio kind of companies. What does innovation in the sales process look like to you? What's the things that are standing out for you when you're scanning the market?
Again, we're a really different animal probably in that part. We have a ready product. We pick the product itself, so we don't go to product development. We don't have a problem of reaching our customers, so we don't have really an outreach. We do really heavy, big B2B business, so we don't need to think about outbound too much. So we go very targeted, and we get to where we want to get. So for me, it's really about back to basic. Maybe that word is ensuring, and there's incredible how much misunderstanding from the scale-up side about how do I drive a sales process. So I start there. That's my main part. So who do I target? How do I target? But then how do I win them? So how do I kill opportunities early in a way that actually the client or the prospect believes this is a good story, because I want to come back to that prospect. So I want to help the prospect make the right decision. So. And I think that most of the time we usually waste on opportunities that are not won, that are not converted, either too late, they're already in bed with somebody else, or for whatever. But you can identify, by asking the right questions, why not? So for me, I think innovation in a difficult way is a lot of things. Of course, AI can help in data and analytics and all that part, but actually actively thinking about how do you, as a person, because B2B is still people business, it's still personal relationship based. How can you be better in order to make sure that, hey, maybe just the Webex is enough and I don't need to fly there, right? Because I actually validate already, this is not the right timing. It might just be timing. Timing is often, before I think 5 to 10% of your buyers are actually buying, right? Or prospects are buying. So, hey, let me make sure that I identify those that are right now not, but hey, next quarter or next year, that's the right time to talk again, right? So I think it's really about that understanding, critically reviewing, how can I get better and enable my sales guys and, sales team to be better in those discussions. That saves the majority of effort. So if you focus at the beginning on the right opportunities, that's, I think, where we really spend our most time on, where I think we're really getting the most value out of it.
I think that's a really important point, and I guess it's around thinking about some of the statistics that Jon shared. What it was, 84% of customers buy the first vendor that they come across, but you have to be there at the right time for the customers when they're ready to buy, and then only 5 or 10% are ready to buy at any one point in time. So your challenge is, how do I stay top of mind and be ready at the point when they're ready? And there is a challenge. But Sanjiv, innovation, sales, are you approaching it any differently at Creo?
Yeah, quite differently, actually. I do agree that innovation, the word is slightly a little more enlarged, and it can be used as improvements. But what I feel is, see, if you look at it from CPaaS, CCaaS, UCaaS point of view, right? All of these is sort of like merging. Customers, when they're actually trying to order something, they're not fully aware as to what they are really looking for. Most of the time, you have to help them define what they're actually looking for. So what we have tried to do is, and there are leads coming in, right, from various different angles. They're probably getting qualified from the company's financial standing, from their segment standing, all that, but not qualified from the actual product fit, right? So that's what we do is, as soon as the lead comes, it's qualified from the financial point of view. We bring in a solution manager along with the account manager. And solution manager actually becomes more like an educator to the customer. So, okay, what exactly you're looking for? Are you looking for this? You mentioned this and that. It can have an impact on the third one. Are you also planning for that? Similar kind of discussions. And those discussions actually leads to a lot more confidence in the customer that, okay, I have a vendor now that actually understands my need, understand the industry, can bring me all the pieces that they need, and that becomes a lot more better. And if that point, if you find out that, okay, this customer doesn't fit my profile or doesn't fit my solution, then you keep them in the back pocket. You continue to educate them, stay in touch with them, but don't close that at times. So it's besides closing, it's also about that relationship of trust.
So thank you for that. I think there's some really interesting, you picked up on an education sort of piece. And I think the world is seemingly moving so fast that customers are suffering from FOMO, lack of education, all of these different sort of things. It's not the right sort of time. But I think they also want to kind of pick up on a thread that Jon alluded to, but then Gwen talked about in the sort of the whole go-to-market strategy about alignment. And if you allow me, I just want to read out some stats because they're quite frightening. And this relates to that key challenge that I think is holding many organizations back is that lack of alignment between sales, marketing, and service. And there's research that has come from people like Sugar CRM, who you're probably all familiar with. And they say that only 1 in 3 of sales and marketing leaders think that their teams are well aligned. And then there's a whole bunch of other research that supports that. But then when you do get aligned, LinkedIn research has said that businesses with strong sales and marketing alignment are 67% more effective in closing deals, 58% more effective in retaining customers, and drove 208% more revenue as a result of their marketing. That's backed up by Forrester, who says that highly aligned companies grow 19% faster than companies that are not aligned and are 15% more profitable. So here's my question, gentlemen. How are you making sure that sales and service and marketing and success and things are aligned with your sales kind of function? And I think I'm going to come to Nicolai first, because you've probably got the more complicated kind of job, because you've got a number of entities that you're overseeing, and then we'll kind of work our way back on the kind of panel. I mean, is that a real challenge, particularly for scale-ups?
For scale-ups, different from our perspective, right? Our marketing, in a way, is our sourcing to find the products, which is driven by our sales guys on the market. What do we hear, right? Because we want that the sales guys get propositions in that we believe that there's a market need. So there's kind of the first link. Then the second part, of course, is now once you have them in, how do you steer them? How do you align? Who's really? What are the opportunities you're running after? So for us, the sales team, we only have 2 teams, so we're very simplistic in that way. So one is the sourcing team, find the solution, and the other team is then the entire sales team, where then we really have the sales steering in there. We have overarching incentive systems for everybody profiters. When we go incentive is just a very strong part. You can play a lot with the incentive so that you feel like, hey, if it comes in, then it benefits all of me. So I think incentive is a key part. In our portfolio companies itself, they're probably also still too early stage. So classic is will be companies between 20 to 150 employees. Of course, the bigger they get, the more they have, more clear-cut split. I believe they are all struggling. I think the majority of scale-ups are hugely struggling with B2B sales because it is just really complicated to really master and understand it and understand the role of the marketing. And then it depends on what kind of philosophy you're on, how strong is really marketing, and marketing needs to guide and steer. I think I'm more on the previous part. I think it needs to be very much aligned and on one part, and you need to have that back channel. Otherwise, you end up in the telco world where, you know, I'm a telco guy in the back, who always come, and I don't know how often I've heard it, but at a gazillion times, where the telcos say, yeah, our sales team, they only can sell SIM cards, right? They cannot sell anything else. So what do you do with that, right? So I think there's a very strong argument to really have the teams closely aligned, and incentive is just a big part of it to really align teams, in my view.
And John, does that align with your experience? I mean, how have you achieved that level of alignment that's going to drive that growth and profitability?
Yeah, I would say within our organization, with the chief revenue title, all sales and marketing reports to me. So
Right.
service doesn't, but those teams are aligned, and we get input and plan from both, and then we use the empirical data. We're a huge HubSpot shop when it comes to tracking marketing effectiveness and things like that. We use the if there ever has to be a moment of truth or a BS meter on anything, we use the past performance and our current performance from campaigns in HubSpot and things like that. Mm-hmm. So in that way we align, but we also meet regularly and talk about what's working. We're in our service provider space where we're selling to MSPs and service providers globally that are deploying our platform. We have a couple of much larger tech competitors that are doing us a favor by having some of their channel go into the market now and look at new potential solutions in kind of a cap and grow strategy or replacement strategy. And you know, the nice thing about the way we're oriented to the data is that we can look at, we had one recently where an opportunity had originally converted on a piece of content in 2018 and be able to track that through multiple calls, visits, attendance to webinars, coming by and seeing us at a trade show. I mean, when you're looking at all the things that we looked at earlier in that last session on kind of like a holistic go-to-market campaign, you know, we can look into the data and see customers walking through every one of those steps. Some of them taking a fast on-ramp if they're feeling more stress from their current provider and converting and ending up in a sales closure much more rapidly. But for us, we align the team, we look at the data, we review it regularly together, we talk about the reality of what's going on in the market, and then we make and adjust plans based on what's working. So we don't really have a struggle with getting people on the same page because we're reading the same book.
Okay, perfect. Thomas, I'm keeping one eye on the time. Alignment, what's the best way that you found to achieve that alignment, given that you've gone through different growth stages and now are having to achieve alignment with a bigger organization?
So I think firstly, when I listen to your stats there, I think there is an element of, that's the viewpoint of these businesses that are selling the alignment in those businesses. And I do think, to some degree, there's also value of not being 100% aligned, because sometimes, you know, you have this, I want my salespeople also to go out there, have conversations with customers that brings back, you know, requirements and ideas about new products that are coming into the product portfolio. So I think there is, but of course, complete disalignment doesn't help anything. I can't have salespeople go out and sell something that we can't deliver, et cetera. So what Cisco, just as a quick one, what Cisco does, which is a very hands-on thing, on which they get a lot of flack for, is that they take all their salespeople, 20,000 people, to Vegas for a week every year. And they take the biggest stage there in the world, is the Boxing Max in the MGM stadium, and it's full of you and all your colleagues, and it's, you know, senior leaders on stage talking about we're talking about this year. What are the things that we are moving on this year? Celebrating the winners, you know, all these kind of things. And I I go there every year. I hate when I get on the flight. I think, oh, fuck, what am I doing this shit for? Sorry, my language. But when I go back, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid, and I go back thinking, wow, this is pretty cool.
Right.
So there is an element of benefit of these kind of alignments.
But also, it's a very human thing, right? And alignment is a human thing. It's not something that just lives in a spreadsheet. So it's a very human thing. You actually build that connection, understand honing in on the messaging and stuff. Sanjiv, do you take your people to Vegas to achieve alignment?
I wish. I mean, you hold the whole conference next time, right?
Well, let's all go to Vegas.
Let's do that. Yeah. Well, I definitely agree with all the alignment topics that my colleagues here said. But in addition to that, one thing that I would like to mention is, like going back to the CX part, going forward, selling something is never going to be a point solution. So what most likely we'll be needing is the way to keep bringing the partners into the mix. So there's a continuous partner program like the Webex App Hub, which we led to bring in a variety of these partners into the Cisco mix. So when we are selling CX or a solution, either you need a tested, vetted partners into the solution mix or a new partners. So a quick process on the back end for vetting them, getting them into certification and all of that, and then having all certified technically to work with you is what's going to be needed going forward. Besides, obviously, all the things that you guys mentioned. I totally agree with that.
I want to go back real quick to the Las Vegas thing, because we actually have a user group meeting every year where we get a few hundred, not 20,000, of our partners from other companies together. Ours is next month in Nashville for several days in an event like this, but they're all massive enthusiasts for our technology. The thing that blows my mind about that is a lot of these guys outside of the event are actually competitors, right? Because they may be in the same markets, geography, things like that. But you get them at an event like this or something where you're collaborating in person, they're sharing all kinds of, what we would consider trade secrets and things like that. But, a lot of the secret sauce of how they go to market with their potential competitors and colleagues, because they're all just excited to be a part of something larger than themselves, and they want to kind of brag a little bit and share their own best practices. So you can't dismiss in an age of, Webex or Zoom or Teams or whatever kind of meetings that we live in, you cannot dismiss the value of the in-person event for people to be able to share and collaborate.
For me, what I take from that is that sales can be quite a lonely discipline. And so it's great to go and connect with people that are doing the same thing and might face some of the same challenges and same struggles that you are. But I want to build on something that Sanjiv said around the customer experience, because that's something that's very close to my heart. And I was talking about trying to put the customer at the center of what we can do. And I love the fact, John, that you remembered that statistics, because there's the gap, right? That's demonstrable gap between not keeping the customer at the center of what you do. That's what it costs you. It creates that amount of waste. I guess my question would be, because I understand that it's easy, as new products come out, or you've had a new platform release, or whatever it might be, and you want to go and sell the product. You're excited about it, but it might not be the right thing. So, in your experience, what are you doing to keep the customer at the center of your universe? So not to get carried away by tools and solutions and all these different things, but actually keep the customer at the center of your thinking and your discipline, as it were. I mean, Sanjiv, given that you picked it up, I'm going to ask you to come back to you and say, what do you do at Creo Solutions to keep the customer at the center of what you do on a daily basis? You can say it's hard. And we need practice.
On a daily basis, for sure. Are you referring more from the sales point of view, sales process point of view, or generally keeping the relationship?
Well, let's keep it focused on sales right now, because this is the panel's about sales. But so, what are you seeing, say, your salespeople, your sales process doing to try and keep the customer front and center of that kind of process, so it doesn't get lost in the process? Which we've seen lots of evidence of that happening. How do you keep the customer front and center throughout a sales process?
So variety of, that's where the marketing group comes in a lot of handy. So the new product release comes out, so building the excitement before the release comes out. And then after that, educating the customers with the new updates and release and features and functionality. Second thing that we generally try to do is the product advisory council. So when we actually build a consistent product roadmap we have, and that roadmap only gets evolved with this PSC, the Product Advisory Council. So we bring in a variety of customers into the mix, and every quarter we actually talk to them about what their needs are. Just like in the UGM that Sapiens has in the Nashville next month. So similar kind of stuff, but more on a Zoom or Teams or on a remote basis. So every quarter you can get together. So that's the other part that we do, the Product Advisory Council. And the fourth element, I would say, is the regular quarterly review of the customer themselves, right? So, okay, your stats, the traffic stats are like so-and-so, you use so-and-so feature. Now, you know what, we have a few other things coming up in the pipeline. Do you have any plans for that? And can we help you with that? Things like that. So that's how you kind of perk things up before even they get released. So I would say about 4 of these areas is consistently that keep in touch with them.
Yeah, perfect. Thomas?
So I'm lucky. I have some wonderful customers and very, very big customers. And it means that I think we do, of course, quarterly reviews, and we do bring them together sometimes and let them talk together about how have they succeeded or not succeeded selling CPaaS and what drives it. But I think there's one, like talking about back to basics, that I always do. Like, I want each of the people in the team to have one core customer, one core goal that they wake up in the morning and think about and go to bed in the evening and think about. So like having it, so they really think about what the customer does and what they need to do with that customer.
Yeah, and I'll be the one to say it's hard because, and I laugh because Scott Goodwin, Scott's here in the audience, our international managing director, and I had a conversation about this at lunch, and sometimes being a little off the customer centricity. If anybody hasn't met Scott, he is our senior vice president of international markets and covers this region. But, you always want to say you do that, and you want to do that, but I think it's hard. I think we benefit from within our platform, we give a robust set of APIs to our partners to work with. And many times, they're the ones that really drill in on that last mile of customer centricity, because a lot of them take our technology and they go after specific vertical use cases. We have one partner, and he got into it like 10 years ago. He's virtually cornered the market on the pest control industry in North America, because he has spent all of this time writing applications and things specifically for that vertical. We have others that do the same thing with different vertical use cases. So they become a bit of our moment of truth with an end customer, because if we're not giving them the tools to work with, they let us know about it. We govern them with a partner advisory council, similar to what you talked about, and then that user group meeting forum, and then regular interaction across our base. But that's challenging because people come to events like this or just look at what's going on in the market. You want to get excited and build something new or add, we need to have an AI strategy, or the line this morning about I have KPIs for generative AI or whatever, that was classic, right? So, but the customer being in the sound chamber when we're building that sometimes is one of the biggest struggles I think many of us have.
Two alternatives. I'm the meeting guy, right? So one is about objectives. The second about value. So whenever I talk to my sales guys, I say, like, one, make sure that you have clear objectives for the meeting. Think about if it's a me objective or is it actually an objective that would help the customer, and specify that, spit it out at the beginning of the meeting. That's your objectives. That's powerful because it really aligns that it's a good meeting, and you can come back to it easily at the end of the day. And the second time is make sure that every meeting the customer needs to learn something. So there's got to be something that the customer thinks, hey, I haven't thought about it that way, or that was an interesting insight. So make sure that the meeting is good. So maybe that's 2 aspects I always push to our sales guy.
Perfect, thank you. it made me think about something when you were talking then, and if I may, this is a suggestion for yourselves to maybe to give to your sales team, but also for the audience, is particularly for the existing customers, your existing kind of user base. Maybe ask your sales guys to go and ask this question to your customers. And then I'll explain, I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll explain why. And here's the question. The question is there anything that we do, however slight or insignificant, that annoys or irritates you? And the reason I ask that question is based on this idea that there's a thing in our lives called silent complaints. And what they are, we all know what they are. It's like, let's do a quick show of hands. Who's ever been to a restaurant and then you've just kind of, you've gone, it was meh, it was all right. It wasn't bad enough for you to complain. But if anybody asks you about that restaurant, you're going to be never going to go there. Don't go there, not great. Who's been that person? Everybody's hand in the room should go up. Because we all know that we all do that. That is your silent complaints. Those things do not show up on surveys. They don't show up in reviews. They don't show up anywhere. This is like soft cloud data that floats around. And you can only find it out until you seek it out. And customers, if you seek it out and you ask them for it, they will tell you. And it's usually small things. But all these small things, if you take it and you action it and you do something about it, and it might not just be about your product, it could be about how you schedule meetings, kind of how you set your meetings, how you run the meetings, your billing, your design, your documentation, all these different sort of things. If you take that and you act on it, two things that happen. One, you drive continuous improvement into your business. And two, your customer absolutely gets the idea that you're listening to them. And then you build the relationship. But it also makes you more customer-centric in the process because you get to zoom in on it. So that's kind of something that just occurred to me that I thought I'd share. Well, just as from an idea. But given that we're getting close to time, we've got a red flashing number thing in front of us. I want to come quickly to the panel to ask you for your best advice to the assembled audience. Is if you want to drive growth, innovation, results, and impact in your sales process, what's the one top thing that you should do? I'll start with you, Sanjiv.
I think I would say build a partner portfolio and create address a much bigger space than the point that you have.
Keep on trying. Don't give up. Just keep on pushing it. It's a very difficult question, actually, to say the one thing that you want to do better or do. But I do think that the best salespeople keep on going. Don't get beaten down from when we lose now and then. It happens.
Yeah, I'd say collaborate, experiment, align, but then measure. And just be honest about what is the outcome that you're measuring for, and not get people so emotionally vested in something that they can't be honest when they look at the data when it's either wildly successful or not that successful.
I agree to all. Maybe the last one is, make sure that they understand the bigger picture, sales guy, and that they believe into that one, because that can really move mountains.
Perfect. And one final one for me that I'll add is, if you haven't heard of it or you haven't read it, there's an author by the name of Matt Dixon, who wrote the Effortless Customer Experience. He's just written a new book that came out last year called The Jolt Effect. And it's all about customer indecision, particularly in the B2B sort of space. And it's driven by analysis of millions and millions of sales calls and what's successful and what's not, and what the best salespeople do to break that cycle of customer indecision. So if you haven't read it, put it on your reading list, because there's gold dust in there for anybody that's in sales or anybody in the experience space.